the last month of 2022, so we will end this year with gratitude, and let's meet with next year, 2023, with hope and more gratitude. I started talk about on the life of Sotaesan, the founder. You see his picture on that wall. So I asked the question, why the Sotaesan's life mattered? I think if it doesn't matter, then probably we don't really have to really study. So I started with why Sotaesan's life mattered. I think that was the question I asked, and then we kind of, thought about this mattering. So I gave some comparison. George Washington, the founding president of the United States, somehow his life matters to the nations and people who uphold democracy. Why is that the case? Because his life gives role model to the democracy system and governance. And our physical, our parents, the life of our parents matters. Because, why? Because our parents is the root of my body and also my mind. So the Sotaesan, the founder, somehow his life matters because he gives spirit. He gives direction for our practice. So that's the importance of why we need to study. Why? So that's, and the last session we focused on Master Sotaesan, his successor. He wrote the tombstone, the epitaph of Venerable Sotaesan's life. He wrote. So we read it together. And then I gave homework, please, you study, and for the next 6 months, we will study together. So just to meditate on, think about how Jungsan described Sotaesan's life. And actually, I was preparing this talk, and while I was preparing, I was interested in how Sotaesan, he himself, described his life. That when we die, we write kind of a short paragraph on my life. So Sotaesan, he himself, he described very briefly. He said, even though I have attained the way without the guidance of a teacher, looking back from the time of my initial aspiration up to my final enlightenment, many aspects of my experience coincide with the practice and sayings of the Buddha in the past. So he connects his life, the life of the Buddha. So it really, this phrase is so familiar, but it intrigued me. Then I need to study, more, kind of do some research on the life of the Buddha. So I went to Temple Library, and then I got some books in order to really see the, understand the Buddha's life. So here, so today, this the Sotaesan's life 10 pictures. So first picture is today's topic. So why don't we read over, just the first one, meditating on questions about nature and human life. Venerable Sotaesan, Jungbin Park, was the founder of Won Buddhism. He was born the son of a peasant on May 5th, 1981 in Yeongbang County, Jeonnam Province, Korea. He generally been called the Great Master by Won Buddhist. Sotaesan showed great wisdom even as a child. At the age of 7, he began to have questions about nature and human life, such as why do clouds and winds arise from calm and clear sky? Why are mothers and fathers in a close relationship? So the questions he started to have, the questions. And actually, I was quite interested in thinking about, suppose Sotaesan was born in this era, 21st century, is he going to have the same question or similar question? You know, when I see even 1 year, 2 years children, if they are cranky, parents will give, what is it? The screen. So they are really observed to the screen, all the cartoons, and so is Sotaesan going to have the same question? I don't know. But anyhow, but Sotaesan, he had those questions. Why mothers and are so close? Why clouds? Why winds? Why, So those about nature and human nature, Sotaesan had. And the Buddha, the Gautama Buddha, the legendary story tells, he was a prince and he came out from the palace and he saw baby's birth and sick person and old man and funeral. So those human phenomena changing aspects really became his burning question. Why change in the first place? And then the end seems nothing, dying. So that was Buddha's the question. So that led him to leave his family, and then he searched for the truth for 6 years. So that's somewhat you can see Sotaesan's questions and Buddha's questions, and the Sotaesan and Buddha somehow another similarities. The Sotaesan, he was not very interested in studying and reading. So classical Chinese text, that was not his interest. And similarly, Buddha has quite critical perspective on the Hindu textbooks. So the classical text, on the classical text, the Sotaesan's perspective was this. Most people consider only the 4 books and 3 classics of Confucianism, the 80,000 pages of sutras of Buddhism, the books of our religions, to be scripture, but don't recognize the great scripture that is open right here and now. So Sotaesan clearly said it. Scriptures, in a sense, is, all the scripture is the snapshot of that time, So should read the scriptures here and now, So that's kind of the Sotaesan's perspective on scripture. And the Buddha has also quite interesting perspective on scripture. So a Hindu scholar came and then claimed the Veda, the teaching of the Veda. This alone is the truth. Everything else is false. That's Hindu scholars claim. And then Buddha started to ask, among any Brahmins, is any single one who claims he personally knows and sees that this alone is truth? and everything else is false? Did anyone really see it, and did anyone really experience it? And the scholar said, no, I don't think so. Well then, he's asking, how about teacher of someone who is claiming? And the teacher of teacher who is claiming this alone is truth, everything else is false. So, and then Buddha said, well, it's like a line of blind man, you know? Everybody's blind, so yes, I know the path. So, in front of blind man, and in front of blind man, and in front of blind man. So that the previous scriptures, if you are claimed without experience, that's line of blind man. So somewhat, that's quite interesting, the perspective you can see Sotaesan's, you know, scripture here and now, and Buddha. You know, if you are just claim the Veda has the only truth, then it's like line of blind man. So here, the Buddha's emphasis on questioning, seeing and knowing and understanding, not faith or the belief. But here, then you may say, well then, theorization or specularization is the Buddha's direction. You know, you need to theorize and you need to specularize. Actually, that's not really the Buddha's direction either. So here, the Buddha's position on all the theoretical, metaphysical questions. What Buddha really say, anyone was wounded by poisoned arrow. You know, if you are shot the poisoned arrow, then first thing is you have to take out that arrow first. But that person says, well, I am not going to take this poisoned arrow out until I know that who did. And the person who shot, is it short? You know, is it tall, or is it Brahmin, or is it colored hair, or you know, all details. If I don't know, then I'm not going to take out this, the poisons that are there. So here, the Buddhist tradition, one of very important part is don't ask unnecessary questions. You know? And then the Buddha had 10 questions who did not really answer, such as, is the universe eternal or not? Is universe finite or not? Is the soul the same as the body? Is the soul one thing and the body another thing? And does Tathagata exist after death or not? So all those questions he did not answer. And actually, you know, while I was reading Buddha's attitude, I was quite interested in what was Sotaesan's, you know, towards these questions. And so, one of the question, does Tathagata exist after death or not? And when I see the scripture, on the essential cases for questioning, number 19, it says, numinous awareness of the Tathagata, the people who attain nirvana. So that's Tathagata. The numinous awareness of Tathagata is merged with Dharmakaya. So here, he did not really say, you know, don't ask those questions. He stated, awareness is merged with Dharmakaya. And then it leads to the question, how then do individual spirits become divided again and the standard for distinguishing past and future lives come into existence? So I see, instead of, no, don't ask, he sort of, lead some statement and then you meditate on, you work further. So, and then similarly, the question, is the universe eternal or not? These days we hear a lot on the, universe, metaverse, or, a lot of, and the Sotaesan's perspective I want to just share. So, Sotaesan, one chapter, chapter 6, Doubts Clarified, that chapter is mainly question and answer with his disciples. And then the verse 4, the one disciple asked, during the kalpa of destruction, this world would be annihilated by the configuration of heaven and earth. So that's kind of, the saying existed. So this world is going to cease after big fire, and so somewhat, similar to the Buddha's, universe eternal or not, quite similar. And then Sotaesan, he said, yes it is. He said, yes it is. And then later he said, but all is not in, but it's not just all at once. It's like a never-ending, continuous cycle. So somewhat he's kind of accepting what is saying from the past and then lead to further conversation. So, so somewhat the questioning, in the case of Buddha, he totally dismissed any speculative question. But Sotaesan, somehow he observed and then moved to the next stage, think about further. So I want you also to think about further. And interestingly, Buddhism, I think quite familiar with the Zen Buddhism, Zen Kongan, So when Buddhism came to the China, awakening or enlightenment as core repeated experience. So everybody through Kongan practice, you are awakened. You can be enlightened. So the Kongan practice is the core practice, and then later 1,200 Kongans were created. So, and then Sotaesan said, too much. So here, the chapter 5, essential cases of a question, he adopted, he kind of, accepted 4 the Kongans, which is the same with, Zen Kongan. 1,200, among 1,200, 4 Kongans he accepted. And then just one I'll read. At the moment the Word Honored One was born, he said, in heaven above, on earth below, I alone am honored. What does this mean? That's one of the Kongan. So in Zen tradition, in order to really resolve this Kongan, you have to live your daily life. You cannot do it, while you live your secular life, your responsibility. So totally leave, and then just, the hands keeps the eggs warm. They never leave. And then from there, chicks from the eggs. So that's the Kongan practice. So that's quite separation from secular life, from the religious devotion. And Sotaesan was quite critical of the previous Buddhist tradition. So he said, well, the questioning and inquiring should be your daily mode, not totally separate from your daily life. So the items of heedfulness in daily application, and then items of heedfulness regarding temple visits. So you are in temple visits, right? So during temple visits, what do you need to do according to Sotaesan's guidance? Whenever you come to temple, while practicing the items of heedfulness in daily application, be heedful to engage in question and answers. So you study and your questions and then your answers, you are exchanging with your Dharma friends, your teachers. So that's the number one. And then, if you are awakened to some matter, then be heedful to report that awakening to the spiritual mentor or peers to obtain the appraisal. So you alone say, I'm awakened. No, don't stop there. You communicate and then you just check it out. So one of the Sotaesan's disciples said, Master, I am awakened. Sotaesan says, say what you are awakened. You know what? Why the nose is kind of, not up this way, nose hole is down? Why? Prevent from rain. So I don't know how Sotaesan responded, but so here that's number 2, and then number 3 is if you encounter a matter that raises special doubt, any special doubt, then be heedful to submit it to a spiritual mentor and peers, and gain awakening and understanding. So here, questioning and inquiring during your daily life, you need to keep it and you need to exchange it. So that's so Sotaesan's the early days of questioning and inquiry. Somewhat he accommodated in this scripture. So I think that's the number 1 picture, and then let's move to the number 2 picture. Let's just read and I'll be finishing. So number 2 picture is next session. Offering prayer at Samba Pass. At the age of 11, Sotaesan attended the seasonal ceremony for the worship of ancestors, where he heard a story about mountain spirit. The story inspired in him a hope that if he could meet a mountain spirit, his questions would be answered. In order to meet a mountain spirit, he climbed Samba Pass 4 kilometers from his home every day for 5 years and prayed there fervently. So here you see the core is question. He has question, and then he's raising, and then now he's praying to resolve the questions. And next month, the January, will continue the Sotaesan's life, and especially the prayer part. So have a wonderful holidays, and see you next year.